What are your thoughts as you watch this?
My thoughts are now can we finally stop subsidizing floodplain development? We've had 2 giant floods here in the last 20 years, a little bit longer.
Yes.
And we've made some baby steps with some restrictions over the past decade on subsidies for floodplain development.
All right.
But we need to go a lot further. And we need to recognize that just building bigger and higher levees, that's not maybe the solution in some cases. It's not always the solution. You know, the big new levee might have protected the huge subsidized mall outside of South 64 in Chesterfield.
Right.
But it just helped push the water farther down the Missouri River. You know, it almost went into downtown Alton. They, by a miracle, according to the reports, they got a wall up just in time to protect downtown Alton. And then that water just went into the Mississippi and flooded out West Alton, which had to be evacuated. So I mean, let's remember that just taking a TIF or other type of subsidy, and there are many of them, to help build whatever the subsidy may be, whether it be making shoppers pay for your levy in Chesterfield,
yes,
as opposed to property owners who used to pay for these things.
Right.
That may protect them all, but it's just hurting the next people down the track, and it's terrible public policy.
I think this is the most underreported story of this last 3 weeks. And maybe the rest of us will sort of get back to work and sort of re-examine this. But the fact that small business after small business after small business after homeowner was flooded, inundated where they weren't before, and yet the big box stores that get all the tax subsidies, they were fine. Chesterfield Valley was fine, right?
Perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
In 1993, it was in like a dozen feet of water, or
Right,
whatever it was.
Right.
It's perfectly fine now.
Right. And so people say, boy, the levees worked. Well, yeah, but the water goes somewhere else that's not subsidized. That wasn't having a seat at the table when they were handing out all this money to fix their own levees or to solve that problem, because the water ultimately has to go somewhere.
It has to go somewhere, and it should go to farmland along the river. Because you know what? Farmland, it's a perfectly great use, economically sound use of land. And if farmland floods every 10 years or every 20 years, well, it's a lot less dangerous to life and a lot less expensive to insurance to fix the farmland or the recreational land or the other type of land along the river. But here we are, and we do have some good. St. Charles in particular has a state law preventing TIF in St. Charles. And there are some other laws around the state too, but that point needs to go much farther. It needs to include the whole state, and it needs to include other types of tax credits as opposed to only tax increment financing. There needs to be a blanket prohibition on subsidies in the floodplain in Missouri.
And remember, the person who built Chesterfield Valley was THF, who was Stan Kroenke, who got right, that was so successful they paid off the TIF. I want to say like 20 years early or something. And
they paid it off early, not quite that early.
Okay,
they paid it off early.
It paid it off early, which meant that they really didn't need it in the first place.
Right. Could you imagine if you're a Rams fan in West Alton, like how mad you are at Stan Kroenke right now?
Yeah.
You're taking my team, man.
You're flooding my neighborhood and taking my team all into the same week. Thanks for coming. But it is hypocrisy at its finest. And the small businesses get the shaft, and the big businesses are taken care of. And everyone pays lip service to the small business.
It's pure lip service. And we've written about this. We testified this a few years ago about some further limitations on subsidies in the floodplain that did not get passed. You can find that at showmeinstitute.org. And there's a lot of other great groups out there that have done work on this issue as well. Great Rivers Habitat Alliance, Great Rivers Environmental Law Center. There's other organizations that have been fighting this fight too for a long time. Yeah, it's really the story of and now look, I understand being stuck in the aftermath of the storm, Darden Creek overflowing, and things are going to happen. The system wasn't built for 10 inches of water in 2 days, but where the water goes, look, there's going to be more rain, there's going to be more flooding, there's going to be going forward, but how we handle it and who's taken care of and who's not is it's a really interesting story. All right, David Stokes, when can we read you? When can we see you? We've got some information up on this issue and the abuse of subsidies generally but also tax subsidies specifically in the floodplain at showmeinstitute.org. And I hope people check it out, and I hope people follow me on Twitter at David C. Stokes. And finally, Show Me Institute's going to have a legislative preview policy breakfast at our Central West End offices on January 13th. And I hope people check that out on our website.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's David Stokes. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, McGraw. Thanks, Kelly.
8:43.